Welcome to another CORE podcast to discuss the status of the town's wastewater treatment plant. Today, we're going to have a discussion with several community members to talk about the issues facing the plant, including the notice of violation by the New Mexico Environment Department and some of the current issues that have arisen given the water quality that's being discharged on local roads. Today, I'm joined once again by Jerry Powers and as well by Karen Kaiser, a CORE member, and Sabina Price, a local resident.
And then there's this whole new issue that has come to light. It's been around for a while, but one of our members, Tom McGill, has been very diligent in watching the operation of the sewer. And there has been several violations, it looks like, with regard to the sewer plant. It may have gone extremely high. We have these reports where fecal coliform, which is a dangerous form of bacteria, has skyrocketed at times to the point of it should be below 10 or should be below 1. I can't remember what the exact level was, but it was up in the 24,000 range, which is dangerous. It's a health concern. So they could have put that on the agenda because that's certainly something that needs to get dealt with. So I think it's more accurate to say it's not that there weren't any items to put on the agenda. It's none of the items they want to talk about. None of the things that require them to do something where they've messed up and they're not doing their job. So it's not that they don't have items, it's the items they don't want to talk about that they don't want to put on the agenda.
We talk about things that don't pass the smell test, and the sewer plant is certainly one of those issues because that's how we discovered the problem. Was at the end of the day, the town was spraying water on the roads that smelled like it had some sort of problem with it, like it was dirty water. And after some investigation, we found out that that was true.
Right, and there are people that walk along those roads and children that are being exposed. This is the same water that they want to lay the reuse line to put on the soccer fields. 24,000 on fecal coliform, which at least the level has to be below 10 or below 1, I can't remember. But 24,000, I mean, that can mess with your immune system. It can cause infections. It can suppress your immune system, keep it so busy that you can't deal with other things. So it's astounding that they are not being open about this, but it seems that whenever there's a problem, it just gets swept under the rug.
Well, that's a dangerous thing to sweep under the rug. I laughed at Adrian's didn't pass the smell test because when that water truck would come down my road, I had the same concern. It smelled like sewage water, and I was wishing I could ask them, skip my area, please. It was concerning, but the thought of children being exposed to this on a soccer field, I mean, that just pales by comparison to some of the nonsense they do. I can't even imagine how that wouldn't reach a high priority in our town, to be concerned about the safety of people being exposed to that water. But yeah, they've hidden that. The issues have been hidden for years. And when Councillor Abraham tried to raise it, she gets scolded like a child who's done something wrong, where I would think she'd be applauded for bringing the issue to light because we can't fix it if we don't know that we have the problem.
Isn't this also something that the Department of Health might be very concerned about because of the exposure to infectious organisms that could impact pets, people, and various other factors? So I believe the Department of Health or anything related with environment should actually be informed of the current plans that they're having.
Yeah, Mr. McGill has reported that to NMED, and they have notified the town that they want to meet with them about these subjects. So I'm sure that the Department of Health probably either will know about it from NMED or we will make them aware of it, because eventually the water that's put on the roads or put in that are effluent from the plant will make it into the aquifer at some point and could actually contaminate nearby wells.
No, that's a good point, Sabina, because my dogs walk and then they lick their paws continuously. So, I mean, that really could damage a pet pretty quickly, walking on that street after the water was applied and comes home and licks its paws, and then you've got a sick dog. I know that our Mr. McGill walks miles every day along the same road. And it was following that water truck that brought this to his attention.
Right, and individuals, children especially, they even pick up rocks and throw rocks. So they themselves have a possible contact with their hands. And unfortunately, people don't wash their hands when they're going to walk just because they might pick up a rock and throw it at something. So I believe that the danger of infections is something extremely severe, and it shows the lack of intelligence of our board of councilors and the mayor. They seem to be quite careless when it comes to the well-being of individuals.
I'm just reading something here from the EPA, and it says, why are fecal bacteria important? Members of 2 bacteria groups, coliforms, are used as an indicator of possible sewage contamination, and they indicate the presence of pathogenic disease-causing bacteria, viruses, and protozoans that also live in human and animal digestive systems. So they're an indicator that you could be exposed then to E. coli. They use it as a monitoring device, in other words. So if they've gone through the roof, that could indicate, and probably according to this paper does indicate, that you're being exposed to all these other pathogenic bacteria. And that's an indicator of it.
Correct. And some people, it actually can be deadly because not everybody has the ability to fight off an infection for whatever the reason might be. So the city of Edgewood might anticipate lawsuits for vet bills, for people, medical bills, only because that's what's likely going to happen with the carelessness that we have seen this far.
I miss the reports that we used to get at council meetings from, I think his name was Mike Butler, and I know that he moved away, but it's my understanding now that the wastewater treatment plant operator lives in Utah or some faraway place, and we've never had a report since. I wonder if that might contribute to this situation getting so out of hand.
I'm certain it has. And the issues with the wastewater treatment plant are, I mean, they're beyond number. From a revenue standpoint, the plant brings in about $30,000 a year, but it costs the town hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to operate and maintain. We recently got a copy of the contract for the new certified wastewater operator, and the fee schedule is somewhat ambiguous, but it seems to say that as long as everything is on the up and up and there's no unexpected contingencies, that he ought to be able to perform his work for no more than $5,000 a month. Well, you do the math and you got a plant bringing in $30,000 and it costs you $60,000 just to staff it. And that doesn't include the full-time employee who's here local for the town of Edgewood. You have the problems with the water quality. You have a fact that the plant was designed with a membrane system that is not compatible with hard water, which is something that we deal with here in Edgewood. And beyond that, it's nearing its capacity in terms of what it can actually handle in terms of the load of our water as opposed to its design capacity. And now the town is proposing to do residential sewer and force additional households to hook up to a piece of infrastructure that doesn't work from the jump.
Good point. Yeah, a lot of the money that was originally earmarked to fix the sewer plant a couple of years ago actually got rerouted and redistributed by the mayor into the sewer collection system design. So rather than fix the problems that were already showing up and going on that have now resulted in these astoundingly high numbers that are violations, that money was diverted to build collection systems. So as you said, to put more input into a plant that wasn't working already.
It needs to be run by a professional utility operator. I mean, it really does. I've spoken to business owners who are sewer customers, and they're very pleased with the service they get. So from the perspective of the business owner user, the system seems to work. The logic of having it to draw businesses to our town makes sense to me. But I wish the town would see the light that they've done the best they can. It wasn't good enough. Turn the reins over to someone like an EPCOR, if they'd even take it, that knows what they're doing before you kill somebody.
Yeah, and there are plenty of people that could operate that plant. It's just, I'm not sure why they're having such difficulty getting somebody local. That's a hands-on operation, especially when you're having problems. The other thing about, I'm not surprised that these problems are growing because of this closed style of government. I've run businesses my whole life, and I've always told my employees, anybody can make a mistake. If you come and expose what's happened and the problem, we'll learn from it. We'll figure out a way for it not to happen anymore, and there won't be any negative consequences. If you sweep it under the rug and I find out about it, it's so dangerous to these projects that you'll compound the error. It'll get made over and over, and then you'll have some really, really big problems. And that's not acceptable as a way of problem solving.
No, and here's another thing that's certainly true, is that nobody has a monopoly on wisdom. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people in Edgewood who have all sorts of talents. And if some of these issues were brought to light and if they were made public, I think that there's resources within our own local community that we could lean upon in order to solve some of these collective problems that we face as a community. But when these facts are hidden under cover of darkness by a select few, then there's no opportunity for that sort of collaboration. And it puts you in a position where the sole remedy, the sole source of strength with which to face these challenges is limited to the people who have knowledge of them. And in this case, for the most part, it seems to be the mayor, the town clerk, and perhaps 2 other counselors. But we know 2 counselors who are completely cut out and not provided any information whatsoever.
Councillor Abraham has been chastised, disrespected, screamed at, even cursed at for raising the issue of the problems at the wastewater treatment plant. Almost as if she didn't speak of it, it wouldn't exist. It's the most bizarre way of handling issues that affect each and every one of us. And we all want the same thing. If a successful wastewater treatment plant attracts business to Edgewood, I'm all for it. If it costs $500,000 and brings in 30,000, well, it needs some tweaking. Something has to change. We can't afford to keep that going. I know that Tom McGill is very educated and aware of such processes. I'm not, but he is not welcomed with his questions. It's almost like, how dare he bring it up? It makes no sense, but this matter's dangerous.
It is dangerous, but if we look at all the meetings we have been to, we've seen a consistent pattern that no matter what issue was ever brought to the attention during any of the council meetings, none of them were ever addressed by the mayor or by Mr. Abrams, put on the agenda, or any of the other councilors. They are not bringing that up, but the individuals bring up as concerns, the residents. So it is, you can say something, but it's not heard or listened to.
No, that's true. I think one of the issues that we have noted in the past, and this has been a specific complaint of Councillor Sherry Abraham, is that questions get asked and the response from the town staff is, we'll look into it, don't worry. And then at subsequent meetings, they never give any updates about
Correct.
what progress has been made on the issue or provide any answers to the questions. So one of the things that Sherry had proposed was changing the form of agenda to have an item for old business. This way you could get these systematic updates, but of course that has never happened. Now, another issue, taking us back to one of the things that you had stated, Karen, about the purpose of the sewer plant, is I think there are some people who understand that the sewer plant may never have been the kind of infrastructure project that was going to bring net revenues into the town. But by having it serve commercial customers, for whatever capacity of wastewater it's taking in, the town yields the gross receipts revenues that the business earns in its transactions from month to month. Those monies are funneled to the state and then come back to the town. But if you add residential connections to the sewer plant, these don't come with any trade-off. There's no cost benefit for residential connections because there are no gross receipts that are obtained in that process. And it just drives the sewer plant into a deeper financial hole.
I think the residential connections became an issue when the mayor decided to divert the path of the sewer pipes. I mean, when I first arrived to town, it was logically directed towards the I-40 Route 66 corridor where businesses would logically locate. I don't think any business is going to locate way down at the end of Church Road where nobody goes. I mean, if 3 cars go down that road on a day, I'd be surprised.
Unless he converts his property and sells it as business property, and he will sell the lots as they've been mapped out. It looks very practical that he's actually anticipated selling the property because they already have sewer line installed, increases the value therefore, and he can now put it on the market with profit as a business property. So the zoning change he can request easily.
But I don't see the benefit to the town of Edgewood because I think it's an unlikely location for a business to choose. But definitely, I think he has greatly enhanced the value of his family's property by the reduction.
So this is another one of these examples where the town clearly doesn't listen to the will of the people, because we know from our own investigation and diligence that there have been commercial property owners on Route 66 who have requested sewer service and have been denied. One person sent in an application with a fee and the town sent the money back. Conversely, you have people who are being told that they're going to have to mandatorily connect their residential properties to the sewer system, and there's been outcry, but the town doesn't seem to care. You know, it's one of these examples where you have a good opportunity that you refuse, and instead you take a different course of action, which doesn't make any sense and imposes extreme hardship on other people.
I remember Councillor Abraham asking in a meeting not too many months ago, how many of these businesses that you made all these changes for have hooked up to the, like one was our own police department. And I believe the mayor's answer was none. And Councillor Abraham, I think, pursued it further and said, why? And he said, because we haven't sent the papers out yet, or something that made no sense. And I would think that we would tell the police department, time to hook up. We put the pipes going in your direction. It's your time. I would think we could tell them. I wouldn't think they'd have to opt in. They're part of the town.
Well, it's a very thin ruse, I mean, really, to get sewer to his property, because when you look at 3 or 4 people that petitioned, 2 of which are his family members, one is a friend of his, a good friend and an ex-partner, and one is the Catholic Church, which, by the way, never gets service. It doesn't go to their property down Main Street. So if you look at this, if there's 4 of us on this video, if 4 of us got together and said, we want the town to build a swimming pool by our house, you know, let's say we live in the same neighborhood. We want a swimming pool right there, and we're going to sign a petition. There's 4 of us. How practical is it to spend a couple of $1 million because 4 people, 2 of which are your relatives, say that's a great idea? They'll say, well, we had people asking for it. Well, people ask for things all the time. But do you do it? Do you spend a couple of $1 million because 4 people got together and said they want it in their neighborhood? No, it's impractical and irresponsible to do that.
Well, we've certainly seen a sea change, and the tide is beginning to turn, because the New Mexico Environment Department has been responsive to some of our recent correspondence about the issues with the wastewater coming from the plant, and about the discharge permit and the notice of violation that NMED had sent to the town that still is yet to be resolved in its entirety. And I think this is an example of the squeaky wheel gets the grease, because we started sending them correspondence about 2 years ago. And it's finally taken enough voices, enough letters, enough phone calls for these folks to realize that there might be a problem down here in Edgewood.
And whether the current administration wants to admit it or not, whether they want to admit that there are authorities higher than they are, and they are rules in the form of laws that they have to abide by. All that's going to come crashing in because they're defying the NMED, they're defying the Secretary of State. All of that, you can only go on so long before it all comes crashing in. We recognize, and normal people recognize, that there are higher authorities in the state than a municipal government, and they have to abide by those rules. It's already cost us money, as I understand it, the last legislative session, because of all the problems going on down here that people have heard about in misuse of funds, that they were not as free in assigning capital funds because they know that some of it's being misused. So it's already having consequences, and it's going to have more dire consequences down the pike if this doesn't get resolved. And with the current COVID problem and the crash in oil prices, where the state gets a lot of its revenues to be able to hand out to municipalities for projects, all of that is going away, and the state is now clawing back money that had already been assigned for expenditure in Edgewood as well as other places. So it would have been practical and prudent with the budget to fix the sewer problems while we had money. Now that money is going to be clawed back, and whatever's coming in the future is not going to be anywhere near what it was in the past. So rather than spending it on $2 million worth of collection lines that we didn't need, that could have fixed our sewer plant.
And for the money that has already been spent, like the $700,000 to design the sewer collection system, that money is just lost. I mean, we're not going to get that back.